Hello everyone, and welcome to the World War Photography channel. Today, we'll dive into the incredible story of World War I, spanning from 1914 to 1918, from its dramatic beginning to its profound aftermath, even 100 years later. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and prepare yourself for an unforgettable journey through history. Episode 1. First shots of World War I. Soldiers of an Australian 4th Division Field Artillery Brigade walk on a duckboard track laid across a muddy, shattered battlefield in Chateau Wood, near Hooge, Belgium, on October 29, 1917. In 1910, 9 European monarchs attended King Edward VII's funeral. Within a decade, World War I erupted. 2 monarchs were overthrown and 1 was assassinated. Kaiser Wilhelm II fought against his cousin George V and nephew Albert I. In 1914, Austria-Hungary was a vast empire. On June 28th, Archduke Franz Ferdinand and his wife Sophie were assassinated in Sarajevo after surviving an earlier bomb attack, triggering events that led to World War I. Assassin Gavrilo Princip and his victim Archduke Franz Ferdinand, both photographed in 1914. A Bosnian Serb nationalist is captured by police and taken to the police station in Sarajevo on June 28, 1914. After Serbia rejected Austria-Hungary's demands, war broke out in July 1914. Within a month, major powers joined. In this photo, German soldiers depart Berlin in August 1914, greeted with flowers. Belgian soldiers with their bicycles in Boulogne, France, 1914. The Great War introduced modern warfare technologies like airplanes for bombing and defense. In this 1915 photo, a priest blesses an aircraft on the Western Front. Between 1914 and 1918, over 65 million soldiers were mobilized, needing vast supplies. This photo shows the helmet-making process for German Stahlhelms at a factory in Lübeck. A Belgian soldier smokes a cigarette during a fight between Dendermonde and Oudegem, Belgium, in 1914. German soldiers celebrate Christmas in the field in December of 1914. A midnight battlefield scene in France, where opposing armies often faced each other from trenches just yards apart. The Japanese fleet off the coast of China in 1914. View from an airplane of biplanes flying in formation, circa 1914 to 18. The Salonika, Macedonian front. Indian troops at a gas mask drill. Unloading of a horse in Çanakkale, Turkey. Equipment for the Austro-Hungarian army. In 1915, the French battleship Bouvet sank in the Dardanelles after being hit by Turkish shells and a mine, killing nearly 650 of its crew. In 1915, British soldiers on motorcycles in the Ottoman Empire prepare for the Battle of Gallipoli. A dog belonging to a Mr. Dumas Realier, dressed as a German soldier, in 1915. Pillbox demolishers being unloaded on the Western Front. These enormous shells weighed 1,400 pounds. A motorcycle dispatch rider examines a grave marker reading, "Here rest brave French warriors," while an observation balloon prepares to ascend. Highlanders, soldiers from the United Kingdom, take sandbags up to the front in 1916. British artillery bombards German positions on the Western Front. A British officer leads the way over the top amid the bursting of German shells. American soldiers from Maryland's 117th Trench Mortar Battery operate a mortar during the March 4, 1918 raid in Badonville, France. A German soldier throws a hand grenade against enemy positions at an unknown battlefield during World War I. French soldiers, some wounded, at the taking of Courcelles in the department of Oise, France, in June of 1918. On August 20th, 1917, a stretcher-bearer patrol struggles through knee-deep mud during the British advance in Flanders, near Bolsinghe. German soldiers practice with a flamethrower on April 4th, 1917. Candor, Oise, France. Soldiers and a dog outside a ruined house in 1917. British tanks pass dead Germans near the cavalry's recent advance. World War I saw the debut of tank warfare, which often failed due to breakdowns, mud, trenches, and artillery fire. Western Front, German A7V tanks drive through a village near Reims in 1918. In 1917, the Ottoman Turk Machine Gun Corps fought British troops at the Gaza line during the Sinai and Palestine campaign, aiming for control of the Suez Canal, Sinai Peninsula, and Palestine. A bridge across the mudflats in Flanders, Belgium, in 1918. An aerial view of the Western Front's hellish landscape in 1917, showing crisscrossed trenches and thousands of craters from mortars, artillery and mines near the hill of Combres, Saint-Mihiel sector. A color photograph of Allied soldiers on the Western Front, captured using the Paget process, an early color photography technique. In June 1918, a German ammunition column, with men and horses wearing gas masks, passes through gas-contaminated woods. In September 1917, German soldiers flee a gas attack in Flanders. Chemical weapons, including mustard gas and chlorine, were used by World War I armies from the start. Members of the German Red Cross carrying bottle of liquid to revive those who have succumbed to a gas attack. In October 1918, British forces entered Lille after 4 years of German occupation, following successful Allied counter-offensives that broke German lines and signaled the war's end. On April 20th, 1918, the USS Nebraska, a US Navy battleship, sits in Norfolk, Virginia, with dazzle camouflage, designed to confuse enemies about its range, heading, and speed. A German dog hospital, treating wounded dispatch dogs coming from the front, 1918. On June 7, 1918, U.S. Army Company A, 9th Machine Gun Battalion, operates a machine gun in a railroad shop in Château-Thierry, France. Episode 2, Western Front Photos. Observing the battlefield from an Anzac pillbox near the Belgian city of Ypres, in West Flanders, 1917. The bombardment of Reims Cathedral, France, in September 1914, as German incendiary bombs struck the towers and the apse during the German invasion of northern France. French soldiers on horseback in the street, with an airship flying in air behind them, 1914. In 1915, a French pilot crash-landed in friendly territory after failing to attack a German Zeppelin hangar near Brussels, with soldiers climbing the tree where the biplane landed. German officers in a discussion on the Western Front. The German war plan had been for a swift, decisive victory in France. Little planning had been done for a long-term, slow-moving slog of a battle. French soldiers in a bayonet charge up a steep slope in the Argonne forest in 1915. A downed German twin-engined bomber being towed through a street by Allied soldiers, likely from Australia, in France. 6 German soldiers pose in a trench with an MG-08 machine gun, just 40 meters from the British line, capable of firing 450 to 500 rounds per minute. In 1914, harnessed dogs pulled a British Army machine gun and ammunition weighing up to 150 pounds. German captive balloon at Équincourt, France, on September 22, 1916. French reserves from the USA, part of the 2 million fighters in the Battle of the Marne in September 1914. Soldiers struggle to pull a huge piece of artillery through mud. The gun has been placed on a track created for a light railway. On June 30, 1918, members of New Zealand's Maori Pioneer Battalion performed a haka for Prime Minister William Massey and Deputy Prime Minister Sir Joseph Ward in Bois de Warnemont, France, during World War I. In France, a British machine gun team. The gun, which appears to be a Vickers, is mounted on the front of a motorcycle sidecar. A wounded and muddy German prisoner is assisted by a British soldier along a railway track, with a man in a possible French military uniform holding a camera and tripod behind them, circa 1916. The ruins of Gomicourt Chateau, France. Once a small community on the front lines, Gomicourt changed hands several times and was left in near destruction by constant bombardment. British soldiers standing in mud on the French front lines, 1917. German soldiers make observations from atop, beneath, and behind large haystacks in southwest Belgium in 1915. Transport on the Cassel-Ypres Road at Steenvoorde, Belgium, September 1917. This image was captured using the Paget process, an early experiment in color photography. Mountains of shell cases on the roadside near the front lines, the contents of which had been fired into the German lines. Battlefield in the Marne between Soissons and Perthes, 1915. Soldiers write letters home from the trenches. Life in the trenches was summed up by the phrase later popularized, "months of boredom punctuated by moments of extreme terror." In November 1917 at Cambrai, German soldiers loaded a captured British Mark I tank onto a railroad. Tanks were first used in battle during World War I in September 1916, when 49 British Mark I tanks were deployed in the Battle of Flers-Courcelette. A French photographer captured troops attacking the Germans on the Somme front, circa 1916, from 150 meters above. The smoke may have been used to mask the advance. British soldiers on Vimy Ridge, 1917. British and Canadian forces advanced 6 miles in 3 days, reclaiming Thélus and high ground at the cost of nearly 4,000 lives. An explosion near trenches dug into the grounds of Fort de la Pompelle, near Reims, France. French soldiers launch a gas and flame attack on German trenches in Flanders, Belgium, on January 1, 1917, using deadly gases as weapons. French soldiers wearing gas masks in a trench, 1917. Gas mask technology evolved during the war, eventually providing effective defense and reducing the impact of gas attacks in later years. Gassed patients received treatment at the 326th Field Hospital near Royomex, France, on August 8, 1918. The hospital struggled to accommodate the overwhelming number of patients. French soldier in gas mask, 1916. British soldiers and Highlanders escort German prisoners past war ruins and a dead horse after the Battle of the Menin Road Ridge, part of the Third Battle of Ypres in September 1917. A gigantic shell crater, 75 yards in circumference, Ypres, Belgium, October 1917. A horse is restrained while it is attended to at a veterinary hospital in 1916. British soldiers clean German trenches at Saint-Pierre-d'Ivion, sorting abandoned equipment after its capture. Photographer John Warwick Brooke captures the scene with depth, showing soldiers along the trench. On the British front, Christmas dinner, 1916, in a shell hole beside a grave. British Mark IV Bear tank, abandoned after battle near Inverness Copse on August 22, 1917. On October 19, 1916, a mine tunnel is dug beneath the German lines on the Vosges front. Sappers worked at a depth of 17 meters, reaching beneath enemy positions to plant explosives that would later be detonated, destroying everything above. Wounded men from the Battle of Ypres on September 20, 1917, walk along the Menin Road to a clearing station. German prisoners assist with carrying stretchers. Near Thiepval, France, a soldier's comrades watch him sleep in a deep, narrow trench lined with sandbags. At the far end, a line of soldiers squeezes together, peering over each other's shoulders at the resting man. Episode 3. Technologies in World War I. American troops used a wheeled acoustic locator with large horns to amplify sounds and pinpoint enemy aircraft. This World War I innovation was later replaced by radar in the 1940s. An Austrian armored train in Galicia, circa 1915. Armored trains, first used during the American Civil War, provided a secure way to transport weapons and troops through hostile areas. The interior of an armored train car in Chaplino, Dnipropetrovsk Oblast, Ukraine, spring 1918. The car is equipped with at least 9 heavy machine guns and numerous ammunition cases. A German communications squad behind the Western Front in September 1917 set up a tandem bicycle-powered generator to operate a light radio station. Allied forces advance on Bapaume, France, circa 1917. 2 tanks lead, followed by troops resting by a wooden cross with an Australian or New Zealand hat. In the background, field guns and mortars are moved forward. A soldier on a US Harley-Davidson motorcycle, circa 1918. In the war's final years, the US deployed over 20,000 Indian and Harley-Davidson motorcycles overseas. A German soldier cleans shells for the 38cm SK-L-45 Langer Max railroad gun, circa 1918. Originally designed for battleships, it was later mounted on armored rail cars. The Langer Max could fire a 750-kilogram shell up to 34,200 meters. German infantrymen from Infantry Regiment Vogel von Falkenstein, number 56, take position in a Western Front trench wearing gas masks, Stahlhelm helmets, and sternpanzers, a heavy steel plate used for additional protection for snipers and raiding parties in the trenches. A British false tree is a type of disguised observation post used by both sides. Turkish troops used a heliograph near Hujj in 1917. The heliograph signals with flashes of sunlight, typically in Morse code, using a mirror. An experimental Red Cross vehicle, circa 1915, was designed to protect and transport the wounded from trenches. Its narrow wheels and low clearance likely made it ineffective in the muddy, chaotic front lines. US soldiers in a trench don gas masks as a signal rocket launches behind them. Alarms for gas attacks included gongs and signal rockets. A disused German trench digging machine, January 8, 1918. While most trenches were dug by hand, some received mechanical assistance. A German soldier holds a field telephone handset, while 2 others unspool wire as they head into the field. On the Western Front, a German A7V tank is loaded onto a railroad flat car. Fewer than 100 A7Vs were produced, the only tanks Germany used in World War I, though they did capture and use several Allied tanks. False horses, camouflage to allow snipers a place to hide in no man's land. Women working in the welding department of the Lincoln Motor Company in Detroit, Michigan, circa 1918. A duel between tank and flamethrower on the edge of a village, 1918. Derelict tanks lie strewn about a chaotic battlefield at Clapham Junction, Ypres, Belgium, circa 1918. A German soldier holds a camera in front of a destroyed British Mark IV tank and the burned remains of its crew, 1917. Gas masks were in use in Mesopotamia in 1918. Americans set up a French 37mm one-pounder gun on the parapet of a second-line trench at Diefmach, Alsace, France, on June 26, 1918, where the 126th Infantry was stationed. On September 26, 1918, American troops aboard French-built Renault FT-17 tanks advanced toward the front line in the forest of Argonne, France. A German aviator's suit features an electrically heated face mask, vest, and fur boots to endure sub-freezing temperatures in open cockpit flights. A British Mark I tank, camouflaged and flanked by infantry soldiers, mules, and horses. A Turkish artillery squad at Hasira in 1917. Turkish troops with a German 105mm light field howitzer M98/09. Irish Guards line up for a gas mask drill on the Somme in September of 1916. The Holt gas-electric tank, America's first tank, in 1917. The prototype proved too heavy and inefficient, never advancing beyond the experimental stage. A wooden temporary bridge replaces a destroyed steel bridge, with an English tank that fell into the river when the original bridge was demolished, now serving as part of the foundation for the new bridge over the Scheldt at Masnieres. Telegraph office, room 15, Élysée Palace Hotel, Paris, France, with Major R.P. Wheat in charge, September 4, 1918. German officers with an armored car, Ukraine, spring of 1918. An unidentified member of the 69th Australian Squadron attaches incendiary bombs to an RE-8 aircraft at the AFC airfield northwest of Arras on October 22, 1917, after arriving from the UK on September 9th. 7 or 8 machine gun crews prepare for a sortie in France, circa 1918. Each crew consists of a driver on a motorbike and a gunner in an armoured sidecar. New Zealand troops with the tank Jumping Jenny in a trench at Gommecourt Wood, France, on August 10, 1918. A German column inspects a destroyed Canadian armoured autocar with the bodies of Canadian soldiers, empty belts, and cartridge boxes scattered nearby. US soldiers in training prepare to enter a tear gas trench at Camp Dix, New Jersey, circa 1918. German troops load gas projectors, exploiting a loophole in international laws by releasing deadly chemicals into the wind, rather than using banned gas projectiles. Flanders Front. Gas attack, September 1917. French lookouts in a barbed wire-covered trench. Barbed wire, first used in the Spanish-American War, became essential in World War I, preventing troop movement and driving innovations like tanks and wire-cutting explosive shells. American and French photographic staff, France, 1917. The original caption reads, "The Italian collapse in Venezia, the retreat to the Tagliamento, captured heavy cannons near Udine, November 1917. Western Front, flamethrowers in use." A patient is examined in a mobile radiology lab belonging to the French Army circa 1914. A British Mark IV tank, captured, repainted by Germans, and now abandoned in a small wood. Episode 4. Animals in Battle. A lone cavalryman in World War I, where trench warfare reduced cavalry effectiveness on the Western Front, but they proved valuable elsewhere. Gas attack near St. Quentin, 1918. A German messenger dog released by its handler. Dogs served as sentries, scouts, rescuers, and messengers throughout the war. German soldiers pose with a horse carrying a frame designed to transport a captured Russian Maxim M 1910 machine gun, including its wheeled mount and ammunition box. Bandages recovered from the kit of a British military dog, circa 1915. These dogs often carried medical supplies to aid wounded soldiers on the battlefield. A pigeon fitted with a small camera, used experimentally by German inventor Julius Neubronner before and during the war. The trained birds captured aerial images using a timer mechanism to trigger the shutter. Unloading a mule in Alexandria, Egypt, 1915. Britain and France imported hundreds of thousands of horses and mules due to escalating warfare. German Navy attacks on transport ships sank thousands of these animals at sea. Sergeant Stubby, a decorated Boston Bull Terrier, served as a mascot and combat dog in World War I. He warned of gas attacks, found wounded soldiers, and captured a German spy. Royal Scots Greys cavalry soldiers rest with their horses by the roadside in France. They take a brief respite during their duties in the war. At Kemmel, West Flanders, Belgium, enemy artillery fire damaged German ambulances in May 1918. The attack disrupts vital medical transport during the war. The Red Crescent Hospital at Hafir Auja, 1916, providing medical care during the war. It served as a vital facility for wounded soldiers. A corporal, likely from the 2nd Australian General Hospital, holds a koala in Cairo in 1915. The koala served as a pet or mascot for the soldiers. Turkish cavalry conducts exercises on the Saloniki front, Turkey, in March 1917. The training was part of their military readiness during the war. A messenger dog with a spool on its harness was used for laying a new electric line in September 1917. The dog helped carry supplies for military communication. An Indian elephant from the Hamburg Zoo, used by Germans in Valenciennes, France, to move tree trunks in 1915. As the war continued, zoo and circus animals were enlisted to help with the shortage of beasts of burden. German officers in an automobile travel with a convoy of wagons, while soldiers march along the roadside. The scene captures the movement of troops and supplies. Homing pigeons are saving lives in France, serving as efficient messengers between divisions and the rear. They are also used by aviators to report the results of their observations. Belgian army pigeons were used in homing pigeon stations behind the front lines. Sent forward, the pigeons would return with messages tied to their legs. 2 soldiers with motorbikes and wicker baskets, while a third places a pigeon in one. Mobile pigeon lofts and tents are in the background, with the sergeant wearing the Royal Engineers grenade badge. British troops attach a message to a carrier pigeon on the Western Front, 1917. France's homing pigeon, Cher Ami, was awarded the Croix de Guerre with Palm for delivering 12 crucial messages during the Battle of Verdun. A draft horse hitched to a post, and its partner was killed by shrapnel in 1916. The scene highlights the tragic impact of the war on animals. The feline mascot of the light cruiser HMAS Encounter peeks from the muzzle of a 6-inch gun. The cat adds a touch of personality to the ship's crew. General Kamio, Commander-in-Chief of the Japanese Army, during the formal entry of Qingdao in December 1914. Horses were essential to armies worldwide throughout World War I. Belgian refugees leave Brussels in 1914, their belongings in a wagon pulled by a dog. The scene reflects the hardships of war for civilians. The Australian Camel Corps in action at Sharia near Beersheba in December 1917. The colonel and many soldiers were killed shortly after. A A soldier and his horse wear gas masks, circa 1918. The masks were essential for protection against chemical attacks during the war. German Red Cross dogs head to the front, ready to assist in the war effort. They played a vital role in transporting messages and aiding soldiers. Belgian chasseurs passed through Danes, Belgium, on their way from Ghent to confront the German invasion. The march marked a key moment in the early stages of the war. The breakthrough west of Saint-Quentin, Aisne, France, on March 26, 1918. Artillery drawn by horses advances through captured British positions. On the Western Front in 1916, shells are carried on horseback. Horses played a crucial role in transporting supplies during the war. Camels line a large watering station at Asluj during the Palestinian campaign in 1916. They were vital for transport in the harsh desert environment. A British Mark V tank passes a dead horse in the road in Péronne, France, in 1918. The scene highlights the harsh realities of warfare during the year. A dog handler reads a message brought by a messenger dog who had just swum across a canal in France during World War I. The dog's bravery was crucial for communication on the front lines. Horses were requisitioned for the war effort in Paris, France, circa 1915. Farmers and families faced great hardship as their best horses were taken for military use. In Belgium, after the Battle of Halen in 1914, a surviving horse helped remove dead horses killed in the conflict. The grim task highlights the war's impact on both soldiers and animals. A dog trained to search for wounded soldiers while under fire in 1915. These courageous animals played a crucial role in saving lives on the front lines. Algerian cavalry, attached to the French army, escorted a group of German prisoners captured in western Belgium. The scene reflects the diverse forces involved in the war. A Russian Cossack in 1915 taking a firing position behind his horse. The horse provided cover and mobility during combat. Serbian artillery in action on the Salonika front in December 1917. The artillery played a key role in the ongoing conflict on the front lines. A horse is strapped and lowered into position for surgery on a gunshot wound by First Lieutenant Berget in Le Val-de-Hon, Douze, France. The operation highlights the care given to animals during the war. The 6th Australian Light Horse Regiment marches through Sheikh Jarrah en route to Mount Scopus, Jerusalem, in 1918. Their movement was part of the broader campaign in the Middle East during World War I. French cavalry horses swim across a river in northern France. Horses were essential for mobility, even when crossing difficult terrain during the war. Dead horses and a broken cart on Menin Road, Ypres, Belgium, 1917. Horses were crucial for hauling supplies, but were often targeted or captured to weaken enemy forces. War animals supporting other war animals. At a carrier pigeon communication school in Namur, Belgium. A dispatch dog is equipped with a pigeon basket to transport carrier pigeons to the front line. Episode 5: Aerial Combat. A French SPAD SX-6 biplane reconnaissance aircraft flies over the Compiègne sector, France, circa 1918. German pilot Richard Scholl and co-pilot Lieutenant Anderer stand in flight gear beside their Hanover CLII biplane, 1918. British Handley Page bombers on a mission over the Western Front during World War I. Captured by Tom Aitken, the photo shows a Handley Page 0400 bomber, introduced in 1918, capable of carrying 2,000 pounds of bombs and armed with 4 Lewis machine guns. German soldiers inflate a captive balloon using gas canisters attached to a manifold on the Western Front. Balloons were vital for reconnaissance during the war. A German Type AE-800 observation balloon ascends. These balloons were crucial for gathering intelligence on enemy movements during the war. A captured German Taube monoplane is displayed in the courtyard of Les Invalides, Paris, in 1915. Briefly used early in the war, the Taube was soon replaced by more advanced aircraft. A soldier poses with a Hythe Mark III gun camera during training at Ellington Field, Houston, Texas, in April 1918. Designed like a Lewis gun, it captured photos when triggered, aiding instructors in teaching aerial gunners to improve their aim. Captain Ross Smith and his observer stand before a Bristol fighter of the 1st Squadron AFC in Palestine, February 1918. Captured with the Paget process, this photo is an early example of color photography. Lieutenant Kirk Booth of the U.S. Signal Corps is lifted skyward by the Perkins man-carrying kite at Camp Devens, Massachusetts. While unused by the U.S., such kites saw limited use by German and French forces. The wreckage of a German Albatros D-3 fighter biplane, a key aircraft during World War I, lies scattered after being downed. An unidentified pilot wearing a type of breathing apparatus was captured by the OIC Photographic Detachment at Hazelhurst Field, Long Island, New York. A Farman airplane with rockets attached to its struts. The modification was likely an early attempt at aerial rocket firepower during World War I. A German balloon was being shot down, likely during an aerial engagement. Balloons were valuable for reconnaissance and were often targeted by enemy aircraft or artillery. An aircraft in flames plunges from the sky, its fiery descent marking the destruction of a once mighty warplane during aerial combat. A German Pfalz Dr. I single-seat triplane fighter aircraft, circa 1918. Known for its agility, it was one of the notable fighters of World War I. Observation balloons near Koblenz, Germany. These balloons were used for reconnaissance, providing valuable intelligence from high altitudes during the war. An observer in a German balloon gondola shoots off light signals with a pistol. The signals were used to communicate with ground troops or other aircraft. Night flight at Le Bourget, France. The airport, known for its aviation history, was a key location for early flights and aviation events. A British reconnaissance plane flies over enemy lines in France. These aircraft were essential for gathering intelligence and spotting enemy positions during the war. A US bomber bombs Montmedy, 42 kilometers north of Verdun, as American troops advance. One bomb hits a supply station, while two are seen mid-air. Anti-aircraft fire creates smoke, and a Red Cross building is visible. German soldiers attend to an upended German aircraft, likely after it was brought down or forced to land. The crew works to assess or repair the damage. A Japanese aviator in 1914, likely part of Japan's early efforts in military aviation during World War I, showcasing the nation's growing presence in the skies. A Sunday morning service at an aerodrome in France, with the chaplain conducting the service from an airplane. This unique setting reflects the wartime adaptation of traditional rituals. An observer in the tail tip of the English airship R-33 on March 6, 1919, in Selby, England. The R-33 was one of the British airships used for reconnaissance and air defense in the post-war period. Soldiers carry a set of German airplane wings, likely salvaged from a downed aircraft. These parts were often recovered for inspection or reuse. Captain Maurice Happ and Captain Berthaud in their Farman MF-11 bomber, with the squadron insignia and a croix de guerre, circa 1915. A German airplane flies over the pyramids of Giza in Egypt, showcasing the aircraft's reach during World War I. The car of the French military dirigible République, used for transportation or as part of the airship's operational setup during World War I. A German Pfalz EI prepared to land in April 1916, showcasing one of the early German fighters used in World War I. A returning observation balloon, with men controlling its descent using ropes. Observers wore parachutes due to the balloon's vulnerability to gunfire. Aerial photograph by Richard Scholl and Lieutenant Anderer near Guignicourt, France, showing trench lines and craters. Scholl was reported missing a month later. A German hydroplane, circa 1918, designed with floats for water operations. Used for reconnaissance, patrols and bombing missions, it played a key role in coastal and naval operations during World War I. The French cavalry stationed on the battlefield lift their gaze to the skies as they observe an army airplane soaring past. A striking moment that highlights the coexistence of traditional horseback troops and the emerging technology of aerial warfare during World War I. A 100-kilogram bomb was attached to a German airplane preparing for a bombing mission during World War I. The aircraft would carry the bomb to enemy targets, contributing to the strategic air attacks of the war. Soldiers prepare to fire an anti-aircraft gun during the Battle of Broodseinde, October 1917. On the right, a soldier receives a large shell. This was part of the larger Passchendaele offensive led by Sir Douglas Haig. A crashed and burning aircraft in German territory, circa 1917, after a fierce aerial battle. A Sopwith 1.5 Strutter biplane takes off from a platform built atop HMS Australia's midship Q turret in 1918. This was part of the Royal Navy's efforts to enhance aircraft deployment from ships during World War I. An aerial photographer holds a Graflex camera, circa 1917-18, capturing images from high altitudes during World War I. This camera was commonly used for aerial reconnaissance, offering clear, detailed photographs from the sky. The 14th photo section, the balloonatic section, in 1918. Captain A.W. Stevens and his team from the Air Service photographic section, crucial in aerial reconnaissance during World War I. An aerial photo of a cratered battlefield, with dark diagonal lines representing the shadows of the few remaining tree trunks. A British commander begins a raid, climbing into his Airco DH-2 biplane and preparing for a mission over enemy lines. The aircraft, a key tool for reconnaissance and aerial combat, takes off as part of a strategic offensive during World War I. The bombarded barracks at Ypres, seen from an altitude of 500 feet, showed the destruction wrought by artillery fire. The ruins and debris highlight the intensity of the conflict in this pivotal area during World War I. No 1st Squadron of the Australian Flying Corps in Palestine, 1918, deployed during the latter part of World War I. The squadron played a crucial role in reconnaissance and aerial support, contributing to the Allied efforts in the region. A view from above the clouds as an aircraft returns from a reconnaissance flight during World War I, capturing the vast expanse of the sky and the strategic importance of aerial reconnaissance in the war effort. Episode 6: Warriors and Civilians. French soldiers stand casually, wearing military medals introduced in 1916 for bravery. Likely awarded for the Battle of the Somme, their distinct helmets are clearly visible. Private Ernest Stambash of Company K, 165th Infantry, 42nd Division, receives a cigarette from American Red Cross volunteer Miss Anna Rochester at Evacuation Hospital No. 6 and 7 in Soilly, France, on October 14, 1918. 3 unidentified New Zealand soldiers ride camels during World War I, with the Sphinx and a pyramid towering in the background. A lively group of soldiers, likely South African infantry, stomp their feet and wave walking sticks, swords, and more in a playful manner. Dressed in kilts and balmorals, they laugh, smile, and pull funny faces, clearly enjoying the moment. A French officer shares tea with English military personnel during World War I, a moment of camaraderie amid the conflict. On the Western Front, a group of captured Allied soldiers represents 8 nationalities: Vietnamese, Tunisian, Senegalese, Sudanese, Russian, American, Portuguese, and English, highlighting the global scale of the conflict. German prisoners help transport wounded Australian soldiers, a rare act of humanity amid the war. Interior of a German military kitchen, circa 1917. A glimpse into the everyday life of soldiers during World War I, showcasing the equipment and setup used to prepare meals for troops on the front lines. US Signal Corps telephone operators, 3 kilometers from the trenches in France, were part of the female telephone operators unit, also called Hello Girls. With helmets and gas masks in bags behind their chairs, they played a vital role in communication during the war. A British soldier strikes a pose in the mouth of a captured .38 caliber gun during World War I, showcasing a moment of victory. An unidentified moment in time, captured in the pictorial panorama of the Great War collection, titled Merci, Camarade, a poignant expression of gratitude amid the conflict. Massive groups of German prisoners in France, likely captured after the Allied advance in August 1918, reflect the turning tide of the war. A French soldier, his face mutilated in World War I, is fitted with a mask created at the American Red Cross studio of Anna Coleman Ladd, restoring some dignity to his appearance. Recruits line up at a New York Army camp in April 1917, shortly after President Woodrow Wilson declared war on Germany, marking the start of America's involvement in World War I. Members of the Women's Army Auxiliary Corps, WAAC, play field hockey with soldiers in France during World War I, with drying greens and convalescent home buildings visible in the background, blending sport with recovery. Red Cross volunteers Alice Borden, Helen Campbell, Edith McKeeble, Maud Fisher, Kath Hoagland, Francis Riker, Marion Penny, Frederica Bull, and Edith Farr, all dedicated to aiding during World War I. Wild Eye, the Souvenir King, a figure known for collecting and selling mementos, symbolizing the spirit of wartime trade and memory. A member of the British First Aid Nursing Yeomanry oils her car near the Western Front, showcasing the vital support role women played during World War I. An undated image, reportedly showing Corporal Adolf Hitler of the German Army standing at the left under the plus sign, with his comrades in the band Kapelle Krach during his recovery from an injury sustained on the Western Front in World War I. 5 female members of the First Aid Nursing Yeomanry, dressed in army boots, caps and fur coats, stand by Red Cross ambulances. Established in 1907, the FANY played a crucial role in linking field hospitals to frontline troops, earning numerous awards by the war's end. Giuseppe Ugesi, an Italian soldier in the 223rd Infantry, is confined to bed with tuberculosis in January 1919, while in an Austrian prison camp at Millowitz. Labour Corps members, likely black South Africans in the SANLC, supported the war effort. Though not meant for combat, many died, including 617 members drowned in the SS Mendi sinking in 1917. Canadian soldiers, wounded and transported by light railway, are taken to the dressing station from the firing line. During the Finnish Civil War in April 1918, German troops oversee the deportation of Red troops from Hango. The Whites, aided by German soldiers, gained control over Finland. Female carpenters from the Queen Mary's Army Auxiliary Corps work in a French lumber yard, building huts. By 1918, QMAAC had 57,000 members, wearing protective coats or pinafores. German officers gather to celebrate the Kaiser's birthday in Rauscedo, Italy, on January 27, 1918, marking the occasion with solemn festivities. French dragoon and chasseur soldiers at the start of World War I, ready for battle in their distinctive uniforms, symbolize France's early military efforts. British ambulance drivers stand atop a pile of rubble, likely after a bombing or air raid. Portraits of German prisoners taken during World War I by an official British photographer, intended to be shown to their families back home. Villagers gather, curious about the arrival of British troops, witnessing a moment of military presence in their area. On the Western Front, a captured British soldier salvages the valuables of fellow Englishmen killed in battle in April 1918. During downtime in World War I, soldiers from Britain, France, and the USA, along with members of the Women's Auxiliary Army Corps, watch French children playing in the sand in France. British soldiers play football while wearing gas masks in France, 1916, blending moments of levity with the harsh realities of war. 3 young German prisoners of war, their clothes caked in mud and mismatched in style. The soldier on the left still wears his helmet, while the others have bandages wrapped around their heads. On July 19, 1918, German railway troops washed their clothes beside 50-centimeter shells between Lyon and Soissons, highlighting a rare moment of daily life amid the war. In Berlin, children of soldiers at the front, likely feeling the impact of war on their families, are captured during a poignant moment of wartime life. Watched by a group of locals, German prisoners of war march down a street in Solesmes, France, on November 1, 1918, as World War I nears its end. German NCOs from Infantry Regiment No. 358 pose for the photographer, pretending to drink wine, feast on gherkins, and play cards while wearing gas masks, creating a surreal moment amid the war. A French patrol moves through occupied Eastern Germany during World War I, asserting control over the territory. Around 1919, members of the 369th Infantry, formerly the 15th New York Regulars, arrive in New York City, celebrated for their bravery and service during World War I. Episode 7: Naval Warfare. The German submarine UB-148, surrendered to the Allies, sails at sea after World War I. Built in 1917-18 but never commissioned, it was handed over to the British on November 26, 1918, and later used by the US Navy for a victory bond drive. An interior view of a British Navy submarine under construction at Clyde and Newcastle, showcasing the complex engineering behind these wartime vessels. The evacuation of Suvla Bay, Gallipoli Peninsula, in January 1916, marked the end of a failed Allied campaign to capture Constantinople. After 8 brutal months, troops withdrew under naval cover. In the Dardanelles, the Allied fleet destroys a disabled ship obstructing navigation, clearing the way for military operations. The British aircraft carrier HMS Argus, converted from an ocean liner, carried 15 to 18 aircraft, but saw no combat as it was commissioned at the end of World War I. Its dazzle camouflage made it harder for enemies to target, especially from submarines. US Marines and sailors pose aboard an unidentified ship, likely the USS Pennsylvania or USS Arizona, in 1918, capturing a moment of camaraderie during wartime. A mine is hauled ashore on Heligoland in the North Sea, October 29, 1918, highlighting the dangerous efforts to secure waterways during the war. On July 12, 1916, a Curtiss Model AB-2 was catapulted from the USS North Carolina. This warship made history on November 5, 1915, as the first to launch an aircraft by catapult while underway. The USS Fulton, an American submarine tender, is shown in dazzle camouflage at the Charleston Navy Yard, South Carolina, on November 1st, 1918. Men on the deck of a ship remove ice, captured on a winter morning while returning from France. The rocks of Andromeda, Jaffa, with transports carrying war supplies heading out to sea in 1918. This image, captured using the Paget process, is an early example of color photography. A 155mm gun is landed at Sed El Bahr, with warships stationed near the Gallipoli Peninsula, Turkey, during the Gallipoli campaign. Sailors aboard the French cruiser Amiral Aube pose for a photograph beside an anvil fixed to the deck, showcasing a unique moment on board. The German battleship SMS Kaiser is seen on parade for Kaiser Wilhelm II in Kiel, Germany, around 1911 to 1914, highlighting its impressive presence. The British submarine HMS A5, part of the first A-class, was intended for harbour defence during World War I. However, it was destroyed by an explosion shortly after its commissioning in 1905 and did not see combat. In 1917, the Big Gun section of the US Navy Yard in Washington, D.C., where large artillery pieces were manufactured and prepared for service. A cat, the mascot of the HMS Queen Elizabeth, strolls along the barrel of a 15-inch gun on deck in 1915, adding a touch of charm to the ship's powerful presence. The USS Pocahontas, a US Navy transport ship, is shown in dazzle camouflage in 1918. Originally a German passenger liner named Princess Irene, she was seized by the US in 1917 and renamed after the country entered the war. A dramatic last-minute escape from a vessel torpedoed by a German submarine around 1917. As the ship sinks, with its bow submerged and stern rising, men slide down ropes to safety as the final boat pulls away. The Burgess seaplane, a tailless swept-wing biplane variant of the Dunn D.8, is seen in New York around 1918, operated by the New York Naval Militia. German submarines docked in a harbor with several U-boats lined up, showcasing their imposing size and military power. The USS New Jersey, BB-16, a Virginia-class battleship, dressed in camouflage during 1918, showcasing its distinctive wartime paint scheme. A British Royal Navy vessel launching a torpedo in 1917, highlighting the intensity and precision of naval warfare during World War I. The British cargo ship SS Maplewood under attack by the German submarine SMU-35 on April 7, 1917, off the coast of Sardinia. U-35, the most successful U-boat of World War I, sank 224 ships, claiming thousands of lives. Crowds gather at Outer Harbour, South Australia, to welcome camouflage troop ships returning with men from overseas service circa 1918. The German cruiser SMS Emden beached on Cocos Island in 1914 after being damaged by HMAS Sydney while attempting to raid a British radio station. The German battlecruiser Seydlitz burns during the Battle of Jutland on May 31, 1916. Despite heavy damage, it managed to reach Wilhelmshaven under its own power. A German U-boat stranded on the south coast of England after it was surrendered following the end of hostilities in World War I. The surrender of the German fleet at Harwich on November 20, 1918, marked a significant moment in the aftermath of World War I. The German Navy, after months of defeat and uncertainty, formally handed over its fleet to the Allies, signaling the end of its naval power and the culmination of the war at sea. The German submarine U-10 races through the waters at full speed, showcasing the growing power of the Imperial German Navy's U-boat fleet during World War I. Its swift movements highlight the increasing effectiveness of submarine warfare. The SMS Schleswig-Holstein, a battleship of the Imperial German Navy, fires a powerful salvo during the Battle of Jutland on May 31, 1916, in the North Sea. The battle marked a crucial naval engagement between British and German forces. Life in the Navy shows sailors fencing aboard a Japanese battleship between 1910 and 1915. This scene captures the discipline and camaraderie of naval life during that era. The Leviathan, once the German passenger liner Vaterland, departs Hoboken, New Jersey, bound for France. Covered in dazzle camouflage, it carried 12,000 soldiers on average per trip, completing the round journey in 27 days during the spring and summer of 1918. A portside view of the camouflaged USS K-2, a K-class submarine off Pensacola, Florida, on April 12, 1916. The submarine's unique camouflage pattern helped it blend in during wartime operations. The intricate inner machinery of a US submarine viewed amidships looking aft. This detailed machinery was essential for the submarine's operations, ensuring its functionality and safety during missions. The Zeebrugge raid on April 23, 1918, aimed to block the Belgian port by sinking ships in the canal. Though 2 ships were sunk, 583 lives were lost, and the canal reopened shortly after. The photo is from May 1918. Allied warships navigate the sea while a seaplane performs a flyby overhead, captured in 1915. The Russian battleship Tsesarevich, a pre-dreadnought battleship of the Imperial Russian Navy, docked around 1915. The British Grand Fleet, commanded by Admiral John Jellicoe, heading toward the Imperial German Navy for the Battle of Jutland in the North Sea on May 31, 1916. In October 1914, the crew of HMS Audacious boards lifeboats to be taken aboard RMS Olympic. The Audacious, a British battleship, was sunk by a German naval mine off the coast of Donegal Island. The wreck of the SMS Königsberg after the Battle of Rufiji Delta. The German cruiser was scuttled in the Rufiji Delta, a river in Tanzania, over 100 kilometers navigable before flowing into the Indian Ocean, about 200 kilometers south of Dar es Salaam. The troop transport Sardinia, painted in dazzle camouflage, docked at a wharf during World War I. This distinctive camouflage was designed to confuse enemy forces and make it harder to determine the ship's speed and direction. The Russian flagship Tsarevich passing HMS Victory around 1915. This moment captures the grandeur of 2 iconic ships from different navies during the early 20th century. A German submarine surrenders to the US Navy, marking the end of its mission in World War I. The event signifies a turning point as the war nears its conclusion. The German cruiser SMS Blucher sinks during the Battle of Dogger Bank on January 24, 1915, after a fierce battle between German and British dreadnoughts. Nearly 1,000 sailors lost their lives. This image was captured from the deck of the British cruiser Arethusa. Episode 8: Worldwide Warfare. Annamese colonial troops from French Indochina arrive at Camp San Rafael. During the war, nearly 100,000 Indochinese served in Europe, primarily as laborers, with some thousands in combat roles. Vice Admiral von Spee's cruiser squadron leaves Valparaiso, Chile on November 3, 1914, after defeating a British squadron at Coronel. A month later, they were destroyed at the Falklands, with over 1,800 German lives lost, including von Spee. A group of Russian prisoners of war, captured during World War I, gathered under guard. The Cameroon Company in German Southwest Africa during World War I, stationed and prepared for action in the harsh desert environment. Guns salvaged from the wreck of SMS Königsberg were repurposed by the Germans as mobile field artillery. These 105mm quick-firing guns played a crucial role in the guerrilla warfare against Allied forces in East Africa. A convoy of Spahis, North African light cavalry serving in the French army, passes through Frankfurt, France, on October 29, 1914. A Japanese siege gun positioned for the bombardment of Qingdao, China, in 1914. A soldier receives orders by telephone as the German-held port faces a joint British-Japanese attack. A railroad bridge near Riga, Latvia, destroyed by Russian forces. German engineers constructed a temporary walkway to allow infantry passage. Russia's massive but poorly equipped army suffered heavy losses in World War I, with over 1.6 million killed and 2.4 million captured. Here, reservists are called up in St. Petersburg as the army mobilizes. In 1915, soldiers from the UK, France, Australia, New Zealand, India and Newfoundland fought Ottoman forces in the Dardanelles, aiming to control the strait. The disastrous campaign ended in withdrawal, with over 50,000 Allied casualties. In October 1915 at Gallipoli, the Sphinx or Cathedral area housed No. 1 Clearing Hospital in the front tents, providing care amidst the chaos. This rare nighttime image from World War I shows the Australian lines, with the foreground brightly lit by flares, highlighting the grass and scrub. In the background, shell flares crisscross the dark sky. An Australian soldier carries his wounded comrade to the hospital during the Dardanelles campaign, around 1915. The difficult terrain and relentless fighting made every casualty a heavy burden on the troops. The evacuation of the Bay of Suvla during the Gallipoli campaign took place in 1915. After months of heavy fighting and significant losses, the Allied forces withdrew under cover of darkness, attempting to avoid further casualties. Russian Cossacks, known for their exceptional cavalry skills, are seen here on horseback around 1915. During World War I, they played a crucial role in reconnaissance and combat, often engaging in swift and decisive attacks. A chaotic scene from the Russian troops' revolt on the Eastern Front. After hearing the cry, "The German cavalry have broken through," soldiers fled in a frantic stampede, running for miles without stopping. Chinese laborers at roll call in France during World War I. Despite China's internal turmoil, over 320,000 Chinese were recruited from coastal areas like Hong Kong to support the Allied forces. Infantry lines north of Jerusalem near Nabi Samuel, 1917. The Battle of Jerusalem resulted in British forces capturing the city from the Ottoman Empire. An aerial view of Jerusalem circa 1917, showing the city's layout during the time of British control. The Church of the Ascension on the Mount of Olives, Jerusalem, photographed in January 1918 using the Paget process, an early experiment in color photography. New Zealand mounted riflemen guard a group of German prisoners captured in Palestine, near Jericho, in 1918. A proclamation being read at the Tower of David in Jerusalem, December 11, 1917, 2 days after the Ottoman army's surrender and the city's handover to Allied forces. You can visit this historic location today on Google Maps Street View. A Japanese Red Cross station operating near Qingdao in 1915, providing medical support during the siege of the German-controlled port. Young Russian women, decorated for their bravery at the front, serve as instructors to inspire new recruits in February 1918. Annamese soldiers from French Indochina clean their guns in the Marne district during World War I, preparing for the ongoing conflict. The Russians arrive in Marseille in 1916 after France requested help on the Western Front. In response, Russia sent 5 special brigades, totaling nearly 45,000 soldiers. Indian soldiers in France during World War I, circa 1915. These soldiers played a significant role in supporting the Allied forces, fighting in various campaigns across Europe. An Australian military camp in Egypt during World War I. The soldiers stationed here were preparing for their deployment to the Gallipoli campaign and other fronts in the Middle East. German and Austrian prisoners of war in Russia, among the more than 1,800,000 Central Powers soldiers captured on the Eastern Front during World War I. These prisoners were held in harsh conditions across various camps in Russia. Turkish heavy artillery at Hasira in 1917, showing Turkish troops operating a German 105mm light field howitzer M98/09. The howitzer was used by both the Turkish and German forces during World War I. British troops landing to support Japanese forces in the capture of Qingdao, China, from German forces in 1914. The joint operation marked a significant Allied victory in the early stages of World War I in the Pacific. Algerian soldiers serving in Europe during World War I, fighting alongside French forces. Many Algerians, part of France's colonial troops, played a vital role in key battles throughout the war. German infantry aimed their machine guns at Russian forces from a trench along the Vistula River in 1916. The German guns devastated the Russian masses during their attacks, with 1 in 4 Russian soldiers going into battle without a weapon by the end of the first winter. Soldiers, likely Russian, struggled to navigate through a barbed wire entanglement during World War I, a dangerous and difficult obstacle on the battlefield. The 6th Australian Light Horse Regiment marches through Sheikh Jarrah, East Jerusalem, in 1918, heading towards Mount Scopus during their campaign in Palestine. Slavo-British troops, native Russians in British uniforms, are seen with Lewis guns. A British officer stands on the right of the gunner in this photo. Austrian soldiers punish Russian prisoners of war. Austria-Hungary captured over 1 million POWs during WWI, most of them Russians, and used their labor to construct internment camps near major railway lines. Serbian soldiers man a hilltop trench, maintaining a strong defensive position against potential enemy attacks. Their vigilance and determination are crucial in the harsh conditions of the battlefield. A low-flying German Fokker E.1235/15, soaring over the rugged terrain of the Eastern Front, circa 1915. The aircraft, known for its early role in aerial combat, navigates through the harsh landscape amid ongoing battles. Colonial troops land at Boulogne-sur-Mer, France, on June 13, 1917. Known as the Black Force, they were vital to the French army in major World War I battles. Gas masks in use by soldiers in Mesopotamia, 1918, as chemical warfare became a key element of World War I. General Kamio, Commander-in-Chief of the Japanese Army, at the entry into Qingdao, China, in December 1914. After a 2-month blockade and week-long siege, the Germans surrendered, losing 200 men. 4,700 German prisoners were sent to internment camps in Japan for 6 years. Episode 9, Western Front, Part 2. London buses, repurposed for war, transport Australian troops of the 2nd Division in Renninghurst, France. These vehicles played a vital role in moving soldiers closer to the front lines. German soldiers in the rear signal their surrender to French troops, as observed from a listening post in a trench at Massages, northeastern France. A moment captured amid the chaos of battle. A network of trenches amid the devastation of a French war zone during World War I, with nearby structures engulfed in flames, reflecting the destruction of the battlefield. A French soldier in a trench at Perthes-les-Hurlus, eastern France, takes aim with an anti-aircraft machine gun, ready to counter threats from above. The battles at Soissons, June 1918. A captive balloon and its truck-mounted motor winch, used for reconnaissance over the battlefield. a British soldier standing in a flooded dugout on the front lines in France, enduring the harsh conditions of trench warfare. French soldiers stand in the German trenches they seized after a heavy shelling on the Somme in northern France, 1916. Lens, France, showing the devastated coal mining region of northern France, where 220 coal pits were rendered useless during World War I. This aerial photo shows a section of an old reserve trench near the Somme River on the Western Front in France, offering a glimpse of the battlefield landscape. German stormtroops swiftly advanced to occupy a freshly made mine crater near Ripon in Champagne, highlighting the intense, ever-shifting front lines. Near Ripon in Champagne, German soldiers begin constructing defensive positions in a newly occupied mine crater, preparing for further combat in this volatile area. Battery C of the 6th Field Artillery Regiment, 1st Division, from the US, in action on the front at Beaumont, France, on September 12, 1918, firing at the enemy positions during intense combat. A US Army 37mm gun crew operates their weapon during the Meuse-Argonne offensive on September 26, 1918, in France. This was a critical phase of the World War I campaign. A wounded British prisoner is supported by 2 German soldiers in 1917, showcasing the harsh realities of war and the fleeting moments of compassion amidst conflict. German troops march across a field in 1918, advancing through the war-torn landscape, their movements reflecting the ongoing struggles of the final year of World War I. In the French town of Barastre, October 31, 1918, New Zealand engineers swiftly built a bridge over the River Selle in just 13 hours, all while under intense shell fire. The scene shows an ambulance and mounted troops crossing the newly constructed bridge amidst the chaos of war. A British soldier is seen cleaning his rifle on the Western Front. The growth of his beard suggests he has been entrenched for several days without a break, enduring the harsh conditions of continuous warfare. Royal Air Force planes are being loaded with munitions in France, preparing for their next mission. These aircraft played a crucial role in the aerial battles over the Western Front during World War I. A mother and her child, both wearing gas masks, in the French countryside during 1918. This image captures the civilian impact of chemical warfare, which was a terrifying aspect of World War I. The ruins of Renninghulst, Belgium, in 1916. This small town was heavily damaged during the brutal fighting of World War I, leaving behind a haunting landscape of shattered buildings and remnants of war. In 1917, the Canadian Army arrived in Mons, Belgium, just before the Battle of Vimy Ridge. The soldiers were warmly greeted by crowds who cheered them on, with Canadian pipers leading the way through the streets, creating a powerful and emotional scene. In June 1917, German shells exploded on Canadian positions at Lens, France. In the foreground, a Canadian gun pit is camouflaged to help protect it from the destructive enemy fire, showcasing the tactical efforts made to minimize casualties during intense bombardments. After the Battle of Guillemont in September 1916, Royal Army Medical Corps men sifted through the belongings of the British dead in Somme, France. Their task was to collect letters and personal effects to be sent to the soldiers' families, offering a final connection to their fallen loved ones. A panoramic view of the nearly obliterated town, with a crude sign reading, "This was Forges," possibly Forges-sur-Meuse. The devastation is evident, highlighting the harsh realities of warfare that reduced once thriving communities to rubble. A shattered church in the ruins of Neuvilly serves as a makeshift shelter for American wounded, treated by the 110th Sanitary Train, 4th Ambulance Corps, in France on September 20, 1918. The scene reflects the harsh conditions faced by both the wounded and medical staff during the war. 2nd Division pioneers clearing the road near the Cloth Hall in Ypres, October 1917. Their efforts were crucial in maintaining supply lines and ensuring the movement of troops through the war-torn landscape. A French officer stands near a cemetery, surrounded by fresh graves of soldiers who were killed on the front lines of World War I at Saint-Jean-sur-Tourbe on the Champagne front in eastern France. The somber scene reflects the heavy loss of life during the intense fighting in the region. In 1918, the Central Powers collapsed after the Allies' 100 Days Offensive. Strikes and desertions led to an armistice on November 11th. The Treaty of Versailles was signed on June 28, 1919, with leaders like French Premier Clemenceau, US President Wilson, and British Prime Minister Lloyd George at the Palace of Versailles. On Armistice Day, November 11, 1918, soldiers celebrate the end of World War I by waving their helmets and cheering in a field, though the exact location is unknown. On November 11, 1918, the announcement of the armistice sparked a massive celebration in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Thousands gathered around a replica of the Statue of Liberty on Broad Street, cheering non-stop. Americans joining the celebration along the Grand Boulevard in Paris, France, on Armistice Day, November 11, 1918, marking the end of World War I. The announcement of the armistice on November 11, 1918, sparked a massive celebration in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Thousands gathered around the replica of the Statue of Liberty on Broad Street, cheering non-stop. In the spring of 1919, the 1st Battalion of the 308th Infantry, known as the Lost Battalion, from the 77th Division's Argonne campaign, marched up New York's Fifth Avenue, passing the Arch of Victory. In 1919, a soldier kisses a woman during a joyful homecoming parade, celebrating the end of World War I. Episode 10, After 100 Years. The World War I Canadian Memorial, known as the Brooding Soldier, stands surrounded by tree limbs in St. Julien, Belgium, on March 7, 2014. This statue honors Canadian troops who lost their lives during the first gas attacks of World War I in 1915. On March 26, 2014, sheep graze in an area still hazardous from unexploded World War I munitions at the Canadian National Vimy Memorial in Vimy, France. On March 4, 2014, crosses stand at the World War I Douaumont ossuary near Verdun, France, marking the final resting place of many soldiers. A Verdun battlefield, captured in 2005, still shows the lasting scars of shell impact craters from World War I. On March 12, 2014, a bomb disposal expert displays unexploded British grenades found near Courcelette in the Somme. Each year, farmers uncover tons of dangerous munitions, which experts from Amiens remove and destroy. On May 8, 2014, Kate Kollwitz's sculpture, The Mourning Parents, stands at the World War I Vladslo German Cemetery in Belgium. The cemetery holds over 25,000 German soldiers' graves, including her son Peter, who died at 18 and is buried in front of the statue. On March 29, 2014, German Historical Association members sit on a French 155mm cannon in Bézonvaux, near Verdun. French and German groups visit Verdun annually, where the 1916 battle devastated villages and caused massive casualties. On November 9, 2005, 104-year-old World War I veteran Lloyd Brown recalls the joy at the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard when the war ended. "There's not too many of us around anymore," he said, reflecting on his service aboard the USS New Hampshire. He passed away in April 2007 at 105. On January 29, 2013, the HMS Caroline sits in Alexandra Dock, Belfast. Built in 1914 and a veteran of the Battle of Jutland, She's the last surviving ship from that era. A grant will support her preservation after decommissioning in 2011. On March 19, 2014, a diver from the Bomb Disposal Unit holds an unexploded shell retrieved from a river near the World War I battlefields in Cappy. On June 9, 2008, a member of the Commonwealth War Graves Commission shows a maple leaf emblem found on the remains of a Canadian soldier in Sancourt, near Cambrai, France. The soldier, from the 78th Winnipeg Battalion, fought in the Battle of Cambrai in 1918. On March 5, 2014, trees stand where the village of Fleury once was, near Verdun. A century after World War I ended, 9 villages lost to the fighting remain ghostly remnants, with names still on maps and mayors appointed, but little else left of the streets, shops, and people. On June 3, 2013, watches were found with the remains of French World War I soldiers in Verdun, France. In the destroyed village of Fleury-devant-Douaumont, 26 French soldiers' bodies were discovered in a farm cellar, with 7 identified by their military plates. On November 4, 2008, a man looks at the names of the missing on the Thiepval Memorial in Arras, France. The Commonwealth War Grave Commission oversees 956 cemeteries in Belgium and France, honoring the immense human sacrifice made on the Western Front during both World Wars. On November 19, 1998, archaeological workers uncover a British World War I Mark IV tank in Flesquieres, near Cambrai, France. Abandoned by British troops on November 20, 1917, German soldiers buried it and repurposed it as a bunker. On March 27, 2014, the Somme battlefield is home to several cemeteries, including Beaumont-Hamel, front, Redan Ridge Cemetery No. 2, right, and Redan Ridge Cemetery No. 3, top, in Beaumont-Hamel, France. On May 6, 2014, gas masks from World War I are displayed at the 1914 in the Middle of Europe exhibition at the Ruhr Museum in the former Zollverein coking plant in Essen, Germany. On June 3, 2014, red poppies bloom in a field in Puty, Belgium. The poppy was one of the first flowers to grow in the war-torn soils of World War I, later becoming a symbol of remembrance worn on Armistice Day. On March 12, 2014, unexploded shells are lined up along a wall, waiting to be removed by bomb disposal experts. A French farmer discovered them while ploughing near the Courcelette British Cemetery, a site of a World War I battlefield in the Somme. On March 15, 2011, the casket of U.S. Army Corporal Frank Buckles lies in honor at the Memorial Chapel in Arlington National Cemetery, Virginia. Buckles, the last American World War I veteran, passed away on February 27, 2011, at age 110. He served from 1917 at 16 until his discharge in 1920. On March 27, 2014, a sculpture of a caribou stands over the trenches at the Beaumont-Hamel Newfoundland Memorial in Beaumont-Hamel, France. The preserved battlefield marks the site where the Newfoundland Regiment made their ill-fated attack on July 1, 1916, during the first day of the Battle of the Somme. A digital sonar image reveals the sunken German U-106 submarine in the North Sea, off Terschelling, discovered in 2011. The wreck, which sank in 1917 after hitting a mine, will become an official war grave. All 41 crew members perished. On January 9, 2014, members of the Bomb Disposal Unit lower a large unexploded shell onto their truck at a construction site in Ypres, northwestern Belgium. 2 construction workers were killed on March 19, 2014, when they encountered a similar armament in the area. On March 28, 2014, an inside view of a World War I trench at Massages, northeastern France. The battlefield between the Champagne and Argonne fronts changed hands multiple times between September 1914 and September 1915. During recent restoration, the Main de Massage Association uncovered 7 World War I soldier bodies. On September 5, 2013, rusting World War I barbed wire sits near the kilometer zero marker of the World War I front line at the Franco-Swiss border in Fetterhaus. The front line stretched 750 kilometers from the Swiss border to the North Sea. On June 24, 2014, a monument in Wildenroth, Germany, honors local men killed during World War I. Small monuments like this one are common across southern Germany, listing dozens or even hundreds of names from villages with small populations. On March 4, 2014, a main street road sign stands in what was once the village of Bézonvaux near Verdun. A century after World War I ended, 9 villages erased by the fighting still exist in name on maps and in records, but most streets, buildings and people are long gone. On April 4, 2014, Vera Sandercock holds a picture of her father, Private Herbert Medland, who served in World War I in the doubly thankful village of Herodsfoot, England. There are 13 such villages in England and Wales, where everyone who left to fight in both World Wars returned home safely. On March 26, 2014, a visitor walks toward the Canadian National Vimy Memorial in Vimy, France. On May 8, 2014, divers explore a shipwreck in Burra Sound, Orkney Islands. Scapa Flow, once a key British naval base, became the site of 74 German warships scuttled in 1919. Today, it's a popular dive site. On February 9, 2014, remains of unidentified soldiers are seen at the Douaumont ossuary in eastern France. The ossuary holds the remains of 130,000 French and German soldiers who died in the Battle of Verdun. A statue depicting a poilu, French soldier in World War I, silhouetted in front of the sky on a war monument in Capy, northern France, on November 6, 2013. On June 17, 2014, red poppies bloom on the walls of preserved World War I trenches in Dixmude, Belgium. On November 10, 2003, a pair of shoes, believed to belong to a British soldier, were excavated from a World War I trench near Ypres, Belgium. Belgian archaeologists, with help from British military experts, discovered remains, weapons, and other objects during the first professional exploration of the battlefield. On May 4, 2007, Varlet farm owner Charlotte Cardoin Descamps shows various types of World War I shells found on her farm in Polkapelle, Belgium, during a single season. On March 20, 2014, an aerial view shows the Canadian National Vimy Memorial on Vimy Ridge, northern France, with visible scars of craters and trenches. The memorial honors Canadian Expeditionary Force members killed during World War I. On March 28, 2014, a cross stands at the edge of the Lochnagar crater in La Boisselle, France. The crater was created by a massive mine explosion on the first day of the Somme offensive during World War I. On August 1, 2013, tombs at the Nolette Chinese Cemetery in Noyelles-sur-Mer, northern France, mark the burial place of around 850 Chinese workers who died during World War I. On April 12, 2014, an aerial view shows the Franco-British Memorial in Thiepval, northern France. At 45 meters high, it is the largest British war memorial in the world, engraved with the names of 72,205 missing soldiers from World War I. On August 6, 2009, a man in uniform holds an order of service during the funeral of Harry Patch outside Wells Cathedral in Western England. Thousands gathered to honor Last Tommy, Harry Patch, the final surviving British veteran of the World War I trenches, who passed away at the age of 111. On March 24, 2014, a member of the Office National des Forêts inspects an unexploded shell in a forest near Vaux-de-Vendôme, Verdun. The Verdun forest, filled with remnants from the First World War, has become a target for thieves, much to the frustration of authorities and archaeologists. During the annual event, the 4 Days of Verdun, torchlights are placed by soldiers' tombs at the Douaumont Boneyard in eastern France. The night parade of veterans commemorates the 98th anniversary of the Verdun battle. Participants stand near the Sydney Cenotaph at the end of the Remembrance Day service in Sydney, Australia, on November 11, 2010. Thank you, friends, for watching until the end. This was the final episode about World War I for now. Up next, we'll begin an exciting 20-episode series on World War II. Get ready for fascinating stories and incredible photos. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. It truly means a lot to us.